What a game. There's no other way to put this. USC went out there and shut up a lot of their critics on Sunday night. It's been batted around a lot. You've been hearing a lot of softness. People want fist fights. People talking about the West Coast, and talking about Los Angeles. And I guess USC and the football team did everybody a big favor here in the West Coast to explain to people what we're all about. Hi, as you notice, Mark's not here tonight, so it's he left the keys to the house to Matt and I. So we're going to have a little house party. We're going to change a couple rules. Later on, we're probably going to open up some phone calls if you guys want to call in, celebrate with us on the victory. USC goes into Las Vegas to take on number 13 LSU, walks out of Las Vegas with a victory, 27-20. Matt, what are your quick initial thoughts?
Couldn't be happier. I mean, you could not have asked for a better scenario. And just to be clear on that point, in terms of couldn't ask for a better scenario, what I mean is this. Obviously, the win is the main thing, but you wanted a game that proved this team's toughness, and not just talking about physical, though like USC definitely passed the test there, but you also wanted a mentally tough test. You wanted something that challenged these guys. They had to dig really deep. They had to go through a lot of adversity. They had to go through frustration. You wanted something that challenged this team on every possible level, so that as you go into the Big Ten and you go into Ann Arbor and you go against Wisconsin and you go against Penn State and then you go against Notre Dame at the end of the year, you want to know that you have a team that's ready for a fist fight, that's ready for a slugfest. This game, so many boxes checked, so many good responses to adverse situations. So this wasn't just a good team that you saw on Sunday. This was a tough team physically, and it was a mentally resilient team. So skill, physical toughness, mental, emotional resilience, composure, like you saw it all. And one of the things that Tim wrote about, and by the way, Tim had his laptop damaged.
Can we stop talking about Tim's laptop? I mean,
I'm just going to say.
Fine.
It's fine. I'm just going to say. Well, because people I know were expecting Tim to do, like 10 million stories. He was able to do a few. So, but like the laptop thing, limited his ability. That's why I'm mentioning that. Okay. But what Tim did today at Trojans Wire, Tuesday, he wrote a very good story about how USC did so many things well, and yet there's so much room for improvement. So USC gets a win over LSU, a big-time win that improves the team's overall playoff chances, and yet there is so much for this coaching staff to work on with these players. The ceiling is a lot higher now than it was a week ago. I mean, now we some of us thought that the ceiling was high. Tim thought the ceiling was higher than I did. Okay, I'm gonna admit that. Like Tim nailed it more than I did. No problem with admitting that for me. But now we can see. Now there's actual proof that this team can really grow and evolve into something special. But you want to read Tim's story at Trojans Wire, how great game, and yet there's still plenty to clean up. And if this team does clean up on aisle 4, we could be dealing with something really special in late November, early December.
It's just amazing the way these guys coming off just a hard-fought win. The first thing they're talking about is comments just simple like that. Like Miller's right out of Miller's mouth, just kind of saying that we know we're better. We know there's things we need to work on, etc. It just tells you the mindset of this team. They're not happy. Miller flat out said, our goal isn't to beat LSU. It doesn't stop here. This US team is hyper focused. If you guys on TV, looking at Lincoln Riley, looking at Miller Moss when they're down, 3 points with minute 47 left. And I don't know what it is about Miller Moss, but he never looks remotely rattled. He always looks completely composed. Now, I will tell you, if you look at some pictures, all that emotion came out of Miller after the game. But when the team needed him to just take control, the leader that he is, just a steel-eyed look in his face like, we're going to go score a touchdown. And it's been a while. It really has been a while since you had a feel that your defense is going to be able to get that stop. SC defense, it doesn't really get all the credit because if you remember, they held them to a field goal, which allowed USC to come down on the next play and just take the game over. There were a couple times where USC looked like they were reeling, but then the defense dug deep and got stops. And that's something for me more than almost anything else was USC's ability to consistently get stops. You know, they looked a bit shaky in the third quarter, but one of my biggest concerns and why I was kind of throwing these random loss in there towards the end of the season was, you know, the one doubt I did have was the depth on the defensive line. And they really stuck to the run, almost to their detriment. They kept running. They wanted to prove something. And as the game went on, it just seemed like the defensive line even got more stout and stronger. So that is one concern we could probably cross off the list, you guys. The fact that USC does not have that depth. And Kobe Pepe played a great game inside. Anthony Lucas, Nate Clifton. I mean, you go down the line. Bear obviously had a game. I cannot wait to see what the limit is. Let's see if we can get through Utah State healthy, get into Ann Arbor, and show the Wolverines what we got.
Yeah, well, in terms of the depth, and Tim, you were right. I was wrong. Once again, check mark Tim. But the other thing we need to do to just be clear about is the depth might be fine as long as the injury bug doesn't hit. You know, like that's the thing. If the injury bug hits, then we could have some fresh questions. But as long as this unit, this group does stay intact, yes, the depth is there. Would definitely agree with that. And I was not as convinced of that before the season, to be sure. And one thing about Utah State, I mean, obviously we'll spend more time talking about LSU as we go along. But just one very quick thought, looking forward to Utah State. Boy, now this is a game in which you want to run the ball, right? Because if you run the ball and you can run it successfully, what does that mean? Shorter game, fewer plays, lower risk of injury, which is exactly what you want before the Michigan game. So every reason in the world for USC to go to a run-heavy approach against Utah State. We'll talk more about everything, but like just want to put that note on the record right now before we go forward.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of it's going to be good because also you're going to get a lot of so you'll have your starters resting up. But you're also going to have a lot of those young guys getting some valuable reps together because at some point, you know, we keep talking about the depth of the team, and I do believe there is some serious depth of freshmen and underclassmen. Once they get a little more their feet wet in college football, get used to both, you know, Lincoln Riley's system and Danton Lynn's system, that's going to be even an additional depth that I do believe. If USC is the team we think that they could be, if they're having dreams and thoughts of going to have a 16, 17 game season at some point here, then they're going to need a lot of depth. But I would tell you, I was called crazy. There was a lot of things we couldn't talk about. If you guys remember, though, after that scrimmage, I said, look, I don't know how to say it because quite frankly, I can't say it. But watching that defense, I wouldn't say dominate the offense because they didn't. But the way they were able to stand up to the offense you guys watched on Sunday and go toe-to-toe with them, I knew that a lot had changed. Anybody that's had watched the look in these guys' faces, the concentration, the way they practice, the speed in which they practice, you knew that this was going to be a different looking USC defense. But I'll tell you, even that, when I saw them playing in that fourth quarter, getting those stops, that really was a bit of it was shocking me. I really thought, oh shoot, here it comes in the third quarter. It just looked a little bit like how everyone was predicting it. But it's a testament to this team. We're going back and saying the added size is great. But that added size, are they going to have the stamina to get into the fourth quarter with carrying all that extra weight? Clearly, the answer to that was yes. Again, Matt, I don't know about you, but it did appear to me that they actually got stronger as the game went on.
Well, I mean, there was like a 10-minute window, right? Midway through the second half when LSU with John Emery, leaned on USC's defensive front, began to pound the ball, began to gash USC a little bit. But like after that 10-minute window, USC was able to just bring this game back. And that just speaks to the character of this team, right? Like it was you could feel, and you kind of spoke to this, like you could feel the snowball beginning to get bigger and beginning to roll down the hill. Nope, USC stops it before that momentum really became, an avalanche. Like it's not easy to do that. It's not easy when, you've played your butt off for 2.5 quarters and the offense leaves points on the board. Should have scored some more touchdowns. You wrote about Kyron Hudson. He made the 2 circus catches And obviously the second one helped USC win the game. So like he delivered when it ultimately mattered. But there were 2 balls. You wrote about this at Trojans Wire, right on your hands, man, you gotta bring those in. At least one of the 2. Like first time, okay, guy poked it away. Second time, you need to be able to box out that defender. So if you're, but again, big picture, you're the defense, you're the USC defense. You played so well, but the offense hasn't scored nearly as many points as it should have. It would have been so easy to fold right then. Would have been so easy to just briefly lament your fate, and that little lapse could have just caused everything to collapse. No, this team was ready. It was able to stay the course, stand firm. Just an immense display of really the mental toughness just as much as the physical. We need to keep that in mind. Physically, USC held up in this game, but that it never mentally gave way. Right after that one really bad possession on defense for LSU to get the 17-13 lead, to then find a spine and a backbone. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. How did we ever see that kind of resilience under a non-Sam Darnold, Clay Helton team in 7 years? Kind of hard to come up with one. And did we ever see that last year in the second half of the season under Alex Grinch? Few and far between. In terms of those instances. Like we did see that in the Oregon State game 2 years ago, in the early part of the Riley Grinch years, but it's been rare to see USC find that kind of spine when everything seemed to be about to crash down around the Trojans. That mental toughness, man, if we can keep that, if we can retain that, this team is going to go to the playoff. So it's a big if, but like this team showed it could be that resilient. So hopefully that stays in play the whole season here at USC.
And Miller Moss, I mean, I know we talked about him earlier, but we can't let it go. He also was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, named to that award. First Trojan, and I guess the Bruin kickers kind of slid in the back door. You get the kicker playing Hawaii some accolades, but realistically, let's just say it. It's a nice honor. Just USC, as always, leading the way in college football. USC getting the first accolades in the Big Ten for the previous, I guess, the ex-Pac-12 teams. Get used to it, Big Ten, because you're going to see a lot more with USC offensive and defensive players showing up on some of those week awards. Miller Moss, 25 of 36, 378 yards, 1 touchdown, asterisk on 0 interceptions, and got sacked only twice. He was hurried. Matter of fact, on that one play, Matt, you were talking about where I'm not sure who was it. Who was pushed back into him? I think you named the player when he hurt his hand.
Page. It was Page.
Yeah. So Elijah Page got pushed back into Miller. Miller hurt his hand. You could see it visibly. He came running off the field. You could tell he was in pain. Even after the game, he was kind of shaking his hand a little bit. Good that he's going to have 3 weeks to get that thing rested up, which is, again, let's see how the swelling is today. I'm sure they're going to take it easy. Look for a heavy dose of Mayava. Matt and I talked about briefly. It's like, you know what? This might be a great time just to have Mayava go out there and get some playing time and let Miller kind of rest up. Be interesting, get him a lot of backup time. But Garrett Nussmeier also had a great game. And a lot of people are talking about it's weird. You listen to different people. The other people's like, oh, well, you know what? It just shows you LSU's defense hasn't improved. I don't know what defense they're watching. LSU's defense played great, especially that pass rush. I mean, they were really something. I'm not really getting on our offensive line because I know they got some serious athletes that were rushing, especially on the edge. USC held up pretty strong. So only 2 sacks, but there were a number of hurries. But the thing about that with Miller is I wish I could remember the stat. They threw it up during ESPN when I was doing the rewatch. But basically, I think it was like 6 of 8 or 8 of 10, something like that, when they had a blitz on. And just something about Miller going back even to the Holly Bowl. He takes some shots, but he sits back, stands tall in the pocket, delivers the ball into some of the tightest windows that Gabe and I were talking about. I mean, I don't know how he's getting the ball in there, but his vision, his anticipation to getting the ball to the receiver is just uncanny. Everyone knocks him for maybe the measurables and possibly NFL arm talent, etc. But let's just see where this goes, because this guy is a baller. This guy has talent and obviously the ability to lead the team when they need him most. So it'll be interesting. But Nussmeier, 29 of 38, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that late interception at the very end in desperation time. Also balled out really well. A lot of those yards they got, though, the point is a lot of empty calories in there. You want to go ahead and you want to give them that under stuff. If they're playing a soft zone early in the game, just letting. But it wasn't like USC guys had wide open receivers running, through a deep post and just getting wide open. They were taking what USC was giving them, and USC did a great job. And why you know that is because it's the old bend don't break, and they were trying to keep them in the 20s, but then they tightened it up once they got inside the red zone. And the difference in this game was they were kicking field goals, and USC kicked a couple extra touchdowns. That's really what this whole game came down to. I know that Brian Kelly, Matt, was banging his fist at the end of the game, talking about the mental discipline and trying to blame it on penalties and stuff. But look, you guys, we lost 4 points early in the game when I'm not going to name the name, but one of our wide receivers did a bit of a bonehead play, did a kind of a crackback block and got nailed with a personal foul, which took the ball from, I believe it was 1st and 10 or second. It's 1st and goal from the 5 or 2nd and goal from the 5. And you drop that thing all the way back to the 20. I mean, that was a big play on a blindside block. But to his defense, that receiver did make up for it with, again, a go-ahead touchdown late in the game. So there's a lot going on, but there were mental mistakes on both sides. There was a personal foul against USC also on the other side of the field. So Brian Kelly, relax, stop the crying. There were some mental mistakes on both sides, but mostly, Matt, it was a clean game.
It was.
Especially on USC side.
Yes, it was. So a lot, you said a lot and all of it good. The things that come to mind, like we do need to say more about Miller Moss. And the thing that stands out about Miller Moss, he wasn't perfect. You mentioned the batted down passes. That's going to be a thing for him. Like you have to get that throwing lane correct and make sure that you're not throwing a ball where there are hands likely to be in that passing lane. So that's something for Miller Moss to learn.
That's on the line as well, though, Matt. That's on the line as well.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
But of course, if the pocket's getting caved in, you need to adjust your throw accordingly. But regardless of the imperfect plays that Miller Moss made, and there weren't too many of them, there were a few, but not too many. The thing that stands out about Miller Moss, always in control. And Lincoln Riley mentioned this after the game, that he was always composed, like good play, bad play, he moves on to the next one, and he was always in command of this team, this offense. So like USC should feel really good about what it has with Miller Moss. And I talked all off season. One game in the Holiday Bowl does not mean you're going to be good. I think this game really solidifies the idea that Miller Moss is going to be a good quarterback. Don't want to necessarily guarantee, but like he definitely took a huge step forward. Like I think, USC fans' anxieties about Moss can go significantly down. He obviously has to reprove himself in some very tough Big Ten environments, but huge step forward for Miller Moss. And then as for Garrett Nussmeier and the way USC defended the LSU passing game, so I was wrong about a number of things in this game. I thought this would be a shootout. Wrong. I thought that USC up front had some real question marks against LSU. Wrong. USC held up well physically. But the one thing I definitely got right about this game was don't get beaten deep. Force LSU to complete a ton of passes to score touchdowns. That was definitely the right approach. There were people on the Twitter at Trojans Wire, getting in my mentions saying, hey, why are we sitting back? Why are we so soft in coverage? And I'm saying, hey, we allowed just 10 points to these guys in the first half. Like that's a success. That tells you it's working. Yards, catches, first downs, they all are important to an extent. But the main thing is points. The main thing is don't give up 7s, give up 3s. And USC gave up only 2 touchdowns, 2 7s in this entire game against an offense that, hey, Nussmeier can throw. He has some dudes who can catch, but no one got beaten deep. No home runs, no splash plays. Come on. Holding LSU to 20, like you can't really do any better than that. And one of the things we did on our statistical preview for 2024 here at the Voice of College Football in terms of where we think USC can land and should land in terms of points per game allowed, my number was 25. We're gonna, I think USC's defense has the ability to give up an average of 25 points per game. In week 1 against LSU, 20. So that's under 25. So I think it's pretty reasonable to say that this USC defense has the ability to allow an average of, let's say, 21, 22 points per game. If that is indeed the average points allowed per game for USC, playoff. We're going to the playoff if USC has an average defensive points allowed of 21, 22, something in that area. And that's very achievable based on what we saw against LSU.
We are not going to face quarterbacks like Garrett Nussmeier every week in the Big Ten. We just are not going to. I'd say Drew Auer looked really, really good. It looks like Kolnicki and Penn State, their vertical passing game, they're kind of taking the training wheels off of Auer. So that's going to be a great test for USC. Always have a solid defense. But we talked about it preseason. There just are not going to be a lot of live arms. And I mean, this is what I wrote at Trojan's Wire. The fact that, you have most likely, we just played probably. I mean, I didn't know that Auer was going to make that leap, Matt, when I wrote that list. But it looks possibly like Nussmeier, the way he played. And just like Miller, he's going to get better and better. But anybody knocking what Nussmeier did was not paying attention. I mean, Brian Kelly did say that Miller Moss outplayed him, and I have to agree with them. There were some plays that he left on the field that should have been made, but he's going to get better. But I just don't see, Matt, unless I have a blind spot here, any quarterbacks outside of Auer that are going to be playing, that USC is going to be playing up to that level. Oh, sorry. There is a game against the Irish late in the season that might, but that's more with his legs than his arm.
Yeah.
But I think we probably saw either him or Auer, the two best arms we're going to see all year. We've seen that USC's run defense is absolutely great. We got to give credit. We knew this was going to happen with Matt Entz. The linebackers were active, shooting. There was just big plays on that. I wrote a little bit about this on that goal line. The early goal line stand told us a lot about this defense. And what I saw from that was you just on first down, it was like, I think it was Gentry that got the tackle for a loss, I believe. And then there was a throw in the corner to Lacey that Covington was with them, almost step for step. Looks like Covington's get the reception, but Covington knocks him out of bounds. Now it's second down. Then it just, every play that you saw during that drive, Matt, during that stand, Matt, was just beginning to show you that's the way they're tackling. Oh, then you had that zone blitz where Braylon Shelby drops back, makes a great play on that screen, on that inside screen that they run, makes the play, sure tackle. Last year, I mean, I don't know if we make that tackle. The guy probably slips, it gets into the end zone. Just great team ball, great call by Danton Lynn, and an even better call on the next play when they had, it looked like this guy's that blitz, a well-timed blitz by Mason Cobb, who shoots the middle, gets pressure on Nussmeier, who tries to roll back out to his left. But because of all that extra size and extra strength, Anthony Lucas had shoved Will Fistfight Tiger back about 5 yards and just cutting off Nussmeier's escape. And Nussmeier with Cobb breathing down his neck just had to unload the ball and throw it away. I mean, that really showed us a lot about what this game was going to be and the improvements we were going to have with this defense. It just play by play, it showed you all the mistakes that would not have probably been there last year were there in spades on that series.
So let's drill home this particular point. In November, December, on into January, but at the end of last season, late last season, you had a lot of USC fans saying, "Oh, Mason Cobb's a bust." Not this me. Guy's
not this guy.
I know, not you, but a lot of USC fans did. What? This guy was supposed to be really good coming from Oklahoma State. He hasn't delivered. He hasn't lived up to the billing. And you and I both said this. I know I said it a lot. This is not about Mason Cobb.
Yeah.
This is not about the players. This is about the coaches not being able to coach their way out of a wet paper bag. This is about Alex Grinch having no effing clue how to teach football. Okay? You give Mason Cobb a good coach, he's going to be good. You give Eric Gentry a good coach, he's going to get tougher. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get better. And you saw it. But man, you saw this. Like, coaching matters, folks. You can't blame this on the players. Because at the NFL level, I've said this in the offseason, going to say it again one more time. At the NFL level, you're a grown man. You're strength training all year round. Like, it's your job to be a physical specimen. It's your job to be healthy. Like, you're not worrying about academics. You're not worrying about, the cute girl in class. Like, your job is football 24/7 in the NFL. And so if you're not measuring up in certain ways, put it on the player, right? You're being paid millions of dollars. If you're not measuring up, it's really on the player much more often at the NFL level. Like, you sink or swim, you know what you're supposed to do, you either do or you don't. At the collegiate level, it is different. I mean, you can say to an extent that the players do have to play. Sure, like that's obviously true. And like, if a player drops a ball or makes a dumb mistake, like, Jacoby Lane, with the not being able to execute the rub play near the goal line, like, that's on the player. Like, because the coaches teach that rub play, and Lane just did not execute it well at all. So obviously there are going to be times when you say, okay, that mistake's on the player, because the coaches can't make you finish a play. It's like saying that you're a bad basketball coach if your players don't make free throws. The players need to make the free throws. But more broadly, in the college game, with guys being younger, and guys being, just trying to evolve into professional level players, or at least elite players, the best that they can be, the coaching, the teaching, the guidance, the instruction, day to day, like, that is going to show up at some point. You're going to see which coaching staffs get these 19, 20, 21-year-old athletes to do what they're supposed to do. And last year, the coaches, Grinch and also Dante Williams in the secondary, they didn't have the first or last clue about how to do that. But now that you see professionals, grown-ups, adults in charge of this USC defensive unit, boom! Like, you can see the transformation. Look at that form tackling. Look at that fundamentally sound hitting. Look at guys being in position all the time. Like, this is coaching. This is what coaching does. So, at the NFL level, put it a lot more on the players. But at the collegiate level, these young guys need the right guidance. They need the right developers. You're seeing it. You saw it against LSU. Hopefully we all learned a little bit about the coach versus player dynamic in terms of who's responsible for whether college football programs succeed or fail. Difference could not be more different, 180 degrees from last year to this year.
And now, Matt, how would you like your crow served? Because there's also the thing on player, like mano a mano, right? Player against player, mass and acceleration times mass. And we know what force is. And the job that Benny Wiley and Rachel Suba did with the transformations of these players were just immediate. And to see just the way that the Trojans were absolutely just destroying that we were called they were called the soft guys. But if you watch just the way that they're blowing dudes up, just left, right, and center on plays. Thank you, by the way, Trojan Blade, for sending me these videos. It was an ongoing thing the entire game, just with guys just getting completely out physical. And again, refreshing to see, because we've seen Arizona teams push around Trojan teams in recent years, Arizona State teams that had no business shoving a Cardinal gold jersey around ever. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the lowest points I've ever been to a USC game, the Coliseum, was in 2000. It was in 2021, and they were playing Oregon State. And Oregon State, I believe, I mean, it wasn't 2020. I think it was 2020. No, it could have been 2020. 2021. They came in, and they were running left and right, almost like student body right. They were only pulling like that you just do by right, but they were going left. They were going right. and they were running the ball right down a USC defense. One of the lowest points I could ever. You have Oregon State, no offense, Beavs, coming into the Coliseum and doing what USC has done for the better part of a century to us on our own field. That told you where we were as a program. To go from that moment, me sitting in the Coliseum and watching that take place, to me being in Las Vegas and watching the Trojans, I'm not saying we dominated because we didn't, but you know, football's about your one-on-one matchups, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And I saw a lot of wins for USC, and a lot of those wins where USC is supposed to be pushed around. Remember, they're going to come in and run and knock USC out. A lot of people were thinking they're just going to run the ball down USC's throat. I said, we're going to good luck right to a heavy box. We're going to make Nussmeier win the game. And it looked like they just sat back, took away for the deep pass, let Kyron Lacey get all his underneath stuff and crack him his yards, but then clamped it down inside the red zone.
Yep. So Benny Wiley definitely gets high marks for this. No question about it. I will say, however, like, he hasn't put this thing to bed totally because the defense just could not have been really any better than it was. But the offensive line, like, we need to see run blocking. We need to see that against Utah State. We need to see these guys just pancaking Utah State. I would like to see Miller Moss throw fewer than 15 passes in this game. Like, this is a game to dump truck a weaker opponent and just mash and get some confidence being able to bulldoze some guys. That's still what we need to see with this USC offensive line. Run blocking and not having guys getting pushed back into Miller Moss in terms of a caved pocket, because with Miller Moss's hand getting hurt a little bit, like, you don't want that to recur. Not just the hand potentially getting hurt, his throwing hand, but also if he hits his hand on a helmet or an opposing defensive lineman's hand, you can get like a tipped ball and an interception there. So Benny Wiley has it going in the right direction. I'm definitely going to be able to admit that. Like, I can't pretend otherwise. So happy to be proved wrong. Some people might think that's insincere, but I said it during the offseason. Like, I hope I was wrong. And certainly against LSU, I was. But the offensive line is where USC still needs to show extra dimensions of muscle and power and effectiveness. So we still need that question to be answered as we go along.
Sorry, we're never going to talk to someone on the phone. By the way, guys, hold off. We'll let you know. We're going to take calls in a moment, but hang on for a minute. We'll let you know when we're ready for those calls. There were some beats up front that were a bit disappointing, but I'll stop by saying that there was also it was a solid performance. Sometimes I want to see them kind of take over. I think we have a really big line, and sometimes I don't think they play as big as they can on run blocking. I would like to see a little more of what I thought I was going to see. I'll be honest, I didn't quite see what I thought I was going to see on the run game. And again, like we said, Miller only was sacked twice, which is great, but there were a lot of pressures on a little more than we would like to see in the bad down passes. So there's stuff to clean up on the offensive line. Matt, you talked about a little bit earlier. They got to secure that ball just a little bit better. The little things, right? We talked about that just keeping that mental toughness, not letting the other team get you. I think overall it was really chippy. Bad job by the Big 12 officials. I think they let the game get a little bit out of hand at times. Just right off the bat, I mean, I don't know if you guys caught this, but I remember there was a cheap shot. Was it to Zachariah Branch to the back of his head? It was right in front of two officials. After the play, the LSU defender just kind of gave a big smack to the back of his head. It was clearly a personal foul. Nothing was called. And I'm sure there was some chippy stuff going on in that pile on both sides of the ball. But I do think that the refs could have done a little better job of kind of getting that early. But overall, I'm glad it didn't become a part of the game. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a Pac-12 refs moment.
No, thank God.
In this game. Like, we didn't have USC getting flagged for a soft, bogus roughing the passer penalty on 3rd and 10 in the fourth quarter. Utah, cough, cough. Utah, 2022, cough, cough. So, we didn't have that call that just absolutely stabs us in the back. Like, I'll take this level of officiating any day of the week.
They're coming after Mark. Well, Mark did say that he's taking USC in this game.
Yeah,
so
Mark
you're going
had
after the
USC
wrong
plus
guy a
the
little
points.
bit.
Mark had USC plus the points, as all three of us did.
Now, he wasn't doubting Thomas. I kept telling him about the defense. He kept saying, well, we'll just have to wait and see. And I think that he saw as much as he would like to see. So I will say this. I don't believe, he and I argue right now. I mean, neither one of us has the time to go back and look at what he said. I think last week, by the way, I think I was the only one to say USC wins this week straight up. I'm pretty sure I was the only one on the show that said, I think you two were saying you were going to take the points.
I had USC.
Right?
Well, in terms of placing a bet, I would have taken USC plus the 4, but I did predict USC winning this game by 6. But, but I will admit that, like, I wouldn't have had the guts to bet USC money line. It was more just taking the points. But you I think can be said as being on record that you're taking USC on the money line, not just plus the points.
Yeah, I straight up knew we were going to win this game. I mean, I just knew it. But turned out to be a great game. Could have gone either way. USC did leave some points on the board, like we talked about earlier. I mean, it's maybe not such a drastic finish if USC doesn't miss that. I mean, that was a gut wrench. Don't say, fans out there, none of you had some doubts when USC went down at the end of that half, 10-10, getting ready to go ahead 13-10, and Michael Lance pushes it right. That was quite a momentum killer, and that kind of led into that third quarter where the rushing game of LSU kind of started to come a little bit alive. So, but again, never doubt your Trojans. Great victory. What we're gonna do is, Adam, if you want to give me a call right now, we'll have Adam start off the show, and then once we get through, Adam gets through, we're gonna go ahead and open up the calls. But yeah, just an overwhelming great game. Small things, really, really little things that need to be corrected, Matt. But talking about getting your report card, like, what is it? Just get like that 10-week report card before you got your semester. This one looks really, really good across the board. We're nitpicking offensive line. We're nitpicking a couple. Like, it's hard. Here we are talking about Kyron Hudson dropping those 2 balls after making that catch where he gets targeted, hangs on to takes a big hit, hangs on to the ball, and gets USC into a position to run the ball in for the win. So just a great game, man.
Yeah, before you take Adam's call, just want to mention one thing on the air. For our Thursday show, we should be putting up screen grabs of what we write at Trojans Wire. And one of the things that I wrote at Trojans Wire, and I'm going to write this after every USC game, is our Trojans Wire USC report card. So I hope you read that. If you haven't read it, go to our website, trojanswire.usatoday.com, for our USC report card, and really everything else that we've been covering about this game. Tim's story about USC playing great but still having things to clean up, and also one of the things we did today at Trojans Wire, talking about Oregon being rated 8 spots ahead of USC in the coaches poll, even though Oregon barely beat Idaho and USC beats LSU. So we have that on our site. So there's a lot of good stuff at Trojans Wire. Tell your friends about Trojans Wire. Like, we are just diving into this, Tim and myself, giving you that extensive Trojans Wire coverage of this USC football season. So there's a lot to look at. But one of the things was our USC report card. That's one thing for all of you guys to look at, and you can give feedback to us here on the show.
Here's Mason Cobb saying hello from the West Coast to the Tigers from the Bayou right here. That's a linebacker blowing that dude the hell up. So thank you again, Gabe, for getting the video for me. We do have our guest. Thank you, Adam Lamparello. How are you doing this evening?
All right, Tim and Matt, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, baby.
Yeah, I can't remember a week where I'm just kind of walking about maybe 2 inches off the ground like I've been after all the beatdowns and all the comments that the nation's been making about USC and USC's this, USC's that. It's a great day to be a Trojan, Adam.
Absolutely. And I want to just say a few things briefly. Number one, Lincoln Riley. I have criticized Lincoln Riley for months. Well, he deserves credit. He put together a masterful game plan. He made adjustments and adapted by hiring Danson Lynn, and he proved himself to be a top-notch coach on Sunday. I give him all the credit for that. The second thing is Danson Lynn. His philosophy with that bend but don't break defense was absolutely perfect, and we won in the red zone, and his timely blitzes were perfect. The guy is a genius, and he was probably the best hire we could have made. The third thing I'll say is, look, I know everybody loved Caleb Williams, but Miller Moss is the next Drew Brees. He has the high football IQ, the intangibles, the poise in the pocket, and the accuracy. He is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the history of USC. And the last thing I'll say is the perseverance, the heart, the discipline, and the determination by our team was amazing. And I was wrong. I said we were going to lose 42-34, and I own that. I'm so proud of my school and this team, and I'm looking forward to a great season. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Adam, well said. Listen, there were a lot of doubters. I'm called the Sunshine Pumper apparently because I've been seeing. I knew what USC could be. I remember everyone beating into the ground, going on back to Oklahoma, just give them a decent defense. I knew that we won 8 games last year with that defense, with a rudderless ship defense. USC won 8 games, and then we hear there's no way USC can compete in the Big Ten. There's no way, they're not physical enough. There's no way they'll be able to compete week in and week out. And we just faced one of, either the best or the second best quarterback we're going to face, all year. Riley Leonard's kind of be in the middle. We'll see if he's healthy at the end of the year. Gabe had a good point. Guy's not known for staying healthy. But most likely this might have been Drew Aller is emerging as well. But we passed a massive test. And I heard some shots in the local media, in the national media talking about, well, it's going to be a big step back. They lost a lot of pieces, 3 guys the first round of the NFL draft. But at the end of the day, this is still LSU. They're going to have athletes. Nussmeier is going to be an NFL quarterback. Kyron Lacey is not some scrub. And they answered the call. Yeah. And so I'm excited. I'm very excited. I was excited for the season. Now I'm really excited for the season. So.
Yeah, and you know why I compare him to Drew Brees? There were 2 throws in this game when LSU defenders blitzed and were in his face, and he had less than a second to throw, and he nailed those throws, one of them on 3rd and 6. And it was just incredible. The guy has the poise and the intangibles, and I'm just so proud to be, a graduate of USC and be a part of this great show, guys. So thanks so much, and, have a great evening.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
I said, great time to be a Trojan. Show that Trojan pride this week. You deserve it.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Thanks.
All right. So you guys, that opens the calls. You guys know the number. If not, it's right above our heads. 888-997-4539. Give us a call. Let's talk about USC taming the Kitties. What a great game for the Trojans. Moose, really quickly, before we get to your call really fast. Moose, a $10 super chat. Hello, Tim and Matt. Impressive win by USC. They look a lot better on defense. Remember, Tim, I told you if USC gets a top 40 defense, they're going to be a problem. USC will contend for a Big Ten championship. Yeah, I think you're right on with that. A lot of the national media forgot about that. They wanted to bury USC before the season began. I think a lot of them are walking back their comments as we speak. Thank you. And also, Moose, thank you again. I think I already did it once, but I'll do it twice. I felt so bad. Thank you for the 5 memberships that you sent to us a couple of weeks back, and we just blew it and didn't thank you for them. So thank you for those as well. Now, Gary, I know you got something to tell us.
Well, I do, and I'm going to give a couple illustrations of a theme that I have been trying to talk about over several calls. And I thought, well, people are probably getting sick of me saying the same thing, but it has to do with the mental state that I thought USC players were going to have. There's that famous movie, Rocky. Everybody's seen it. And Apollo Creed is this invincible boxer, a showman. Oh my gosh, he's just showing all over town and making fun of Rocky and so on. And in the first round, Rocky knocks him down. And Apollo Creed stumbles back to his stool, and his manager looks him in the face and says, he don't know it's a show. He thinks it's a damn fight. And of course, the analogy breaks down a little bit because Rocky lost, but the mental state was important. The other illustration that I'll give concerning this, and then I'll try to summarize my point. I got a grandson that plays on a small school. They got 46 players. They show up for a game. The other team walks off the bus. It looks like the storming of the Bastille. I mean, these guys look like I thought they'd never stop coming on that bus. But at the end of the game, we beat them 34-6 because the kids that I'm talking about, these 46 kids, had a mental attitude. So what am I saying? I've said this so many times. I thought that these are young kids at USC. They're young men, but they read and social media. This builds up in time to where I thought we would have an edge. And here's my point. I think we're going to have an edge for the entire season because they don't know it's a show. They think it's a damn fight. When you see that linebacker that you just showed on TV knock this guy back and look at it, I don't think this goes away. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to have close games, but we're never going to be a doormat again. We're never going to be the Paul Feinbaum fodder for his next stupid article. And I know when I listen to those guys from LSU that you had on, Moscone and so on, and they're great guys. I love hearing from them. But they couldn't contain themselves. They held back, but they were ready to crown LSU not only as a big-time team, but the next thrasher of USC. And so anyway, I think we have an edge. We got great coaching, we got great players, but the thing that's going to carry us through is the mental edge. So that's, and I've said this before, but I'm just reemphasizing it. I never doubted for a minute that we were going to come back and beat them because I saw how the guys were playing mentally. I don't know how I felt going into the game, but once it started, I thought, we got these guys. Anyway, those are my long-winded comments.
Gary, one of the things we talked about over the past month was, there was just bulletin board material after bulletin board material from either from LSU or from, the polls, putting USC 10, 11 spots, USC 11 spots lower in the coaches poll, 10 spots lower in the AP poll. Just more bulletin board material was just shoveled USC's way. And you and I talked, Gary, would these guys take it all in and translate it onto the field? My goodness, they certainly did that. Like this team, I don't know if you would say they played with a chip on their shoulder, though you could, like that would be fair. But like this team just had a burning resolve. This team had an icy focus. Like this team was not going to be deterred. Like the determination, the resolve from this team that manifested itself in this game. Yeah, this was a team that played like it had something to prove. So like it took those social media stuff, took the polls, took the comments, took the doubters, took the haters, took all of that stuff and poured it onto the field as you and I, Gary, hoped they would. So great to see from this team.
Hey guys, let's take it easy in the chat. Let's not call each other clowns. I mean, I see a little battle going on. Have a good time. Have your point, but don't make it personal. Gary, I think that one thing about this was two events. I was almost certain that SC was going to get a stop. Like I was almost certain. And I can't remember. I remember at the Utah game when I saw how much time was left on the clock. I'm like, they're going to walk down. They're going to kick a field goal. Because that's just the whip puppy syndrome that I had going on. I knew that we just could not, stop anybody. But that's what I also said on this show. I said, you give me 3 quarters, about 7 minutes into the third quarter, I'm going to tell you what this season's going to be like. And I have to tell you, right around that third quarter mark where I was looking at, where I wanted to gauge what this is going to be, it started to look like my nightmare scenario where we would get worn down. But this team did fight like Trojans. This team did harden up. The mental toughness, I can't explain to you guys. When Matt was talking about the bulletin board material, all the time when we ask these guys questions about, hey, did you hear this? Hey, did you hear that? They say this almost to a man. They're very well coached up. They said, we don't listen to outside noise. And I don't think that's just some phrase. I kind of call, because I think they hear some stuff. But here's what they aren't doing. They're not letting it ruffle their feathers. They're not fighting back. They're not really caring. They're not really paying that much attention to it. And I believe it. I think this team is mentally tough. And that's something that, for a while now, people used to be terrified to come into the Coliseum. And this group looks like they might have the makings of a team that's going to make people think twice about coming into their Coliseum. I would love to see that feel that what you got back in the Carroll years, or just going back, even in some parts of the 90s, you guys, the USC team is just some of the guys on, the Chris Claibornes and stuff like that. We've always had nasty defenses, and we've really gotten away from that over the past decade or so. And not as not individuals. We've had some damn good defensive individuals, but I mean just as a team where people fear coming into the Coliseum to play USC. I think that we've got away from that. I think we're on our way back. That dog work mentality that Coach Henny's bringing to these guys, Matt always likes to bring it. It doesn't hurt to have a guy back there in a Taylor Mays to talk about, how you're going to intimidate and how you're going to take it to their team. Some of these hits, man, I think even Taylor would have been proud of. So I think we're on our way back, Gary.
Well, I'll just say one last thing. Matt has a way of nailing it. And there's a difference between a chip on your shoulder and a burning resolve. The chip on the shoulder can be good for a game or two, but a burning resolve is something that goes to the core of what you are. It bubbles up, and it's just like a little cauldron that will never, never lose its fire. And so I think that's going to be our edge. And I think that it's going to carry us all the way through. Not saying we can't lose a game, but I don't think a loss would knock us off our feet. But anyway, thank you guys for all your wonderful insight, and we'll be able to call in again on Thursday because I don't have a game.
Oh, yeah, Gary,
fight on, boys.
Gary, before you go, just what you're saying.
Yeah.
You brought to mind that Marty Schottenheimer clip from NFL Films. Remember, the pilot light's out. You gotta find that light. That pilot light is not gonna go out with this team, Gary.
I agree. Hey, thank you guys. Fight on.
Fight on, Gary. Yeah, that opens up the call. 888-997-4539. 888-99 Riley. Give us a call. Talk about this big Trojans win. Appreciate you all being here. If you could do me one favor, though, we got about 200 people watching the show. We've had that. Thank you, by the way, all of you for being here. It's been a nice solid 200, 190 the whole night. If you could hit that like button, it'd be really greatly appreciated. It really helps to grow the channel. Hit that subscribe button as well. So if you want to know when we're going live, it's the best way to do that. It's just to hit that subscribe button in the corner and get your notifications on. Thanks again for everyone being here. And thank you, caller, for calling in. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Tim? And I'm Dr. C.
Dr. C, how you doing? I recognize the name from Mark's channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, man, what a win. To be honest, I've got to rewatch the game because I was so nervous. I just paid attention, honestly, to our defensive line. And I was incredibly impressed by the defense. As you see, I think they said they added an addition. They were showing the transformations during the broadcast of the physical, the weight and size that the defensive line gained from last year to this year. I went back to see, did we change strength and conditioning, coach? No, it's the same guy from the research I've made. As far as the strength and conditioning and physicality of this team, what do you think was the biggest factor that you've seen or heard of that the Trojans made this physical transformation compared to last year? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's
what I'm saying.
It's the job of the strength coach is not to decide how big these players are going to be. They get the marching orders from the coaches. They said, probably the defensive coordinator, the head coach. These are the bodies we want, and it's very scientific now. It's not like just like a regular training table kind of situation. These guys are from Rachel Suba, who's the charge of nutrition, and then you have Benny Wiley and his staff that is working on the strength and conditioning aspects of this. And there's no doubt about it. Just seeing the transformations in a number of these players, it's visibly, remarkable from 1 year. What 1 year different makes. It was truly, truly amazing. And there's no doubt it played a big part in this. The coaching, all of it really came together, and all those people were doubting USC. There's one thing that I know is that when USC gets right and has the right head coach, which they do have, We've had him. Lincoln Riley is going to win a championship here at USC. Get used to it, rest of the world. It's going to happen. This year, maybe. Next year, maybe. Is going to happen. And that's because when USC has the right coach, there's very few teams that can play like USC. That's been proven time and time again, Matt, throughout history. If USC has the right alignment, if the school's involved, if they have the staff. They brought John Robinson back for a second run. J-Rob too to work out because they just didn't have the assistance that you probably needed that came in. They used to haggle Pete Carroll about the weight room. You know, at one point they're like, win and we'll get you. He wins the national championship, and they go, "What do you need a new weight room for? You won without it." I mean, it's the small mind thinking sometimes that happens at USC. USC is the only thing usually that can stop USC from winning. That's a fact. I don't care. Call me arrogant, but I'll say that all day long. When USC gets their stuff together, there are very few programs in the country that can stop USC.
So in terms of what's different, and obviously Benny Wiley is doing a good job within the workings of this coaching staff and this new operation. But I think one thing that has to be said, and we don't know this for a fact, we're not privy to the deep inner circle conversations that take place, but I would have to think, right? You'd have to think that when D'Anton Lynn interviewed for the defensive coordinator job at USC under Lincoln Riley, that that he asked Lincoln. I mean, I'm sure this happened in some way, form, or fashion. I'm sure he asked Lincoln, "Hey, the way you guys were doing strength training in 2023, like, hey, we at UCLA just absolutely manhandled you. We ran over you. Do we get to do this my way? Is the strength and conditioning focus and approach going to be different?" And obviously Lincoln Riley gave D'Anton Lynn an answer that Lynn found acceptable, because otherwise Lynn wouldn't have taken the job. Like, Lynn was at UCLA, he was doing a really good job there. Like, no one was putting a gun to his head, but with UCLA not firing Chip Kelly and giving D'Anton Lynn a chance to become head coach, the door was left open. But when Lincoln Riley and D'Anton Lynn had a conversation about the job, I'm sure that D'Anton Lynn insisted, "Hey, like, I saw what you were all about last year, and it didn't look very strong. It didn't look very robust. Are you going to make changes?" Lincoln Riley made changes, and Benny Wiley is executing the plan, as Tim said, that he had the capability to do. So, but really, that kind of explains the transformation that Lincoln Riley had to realize that the way he was doing things wasn't working in alignment with Benny Wiley. So Lincoln Riley changing the approach, that gave Benny Wiley a different roadmap, a roadmap that he's following, and the results are good 1 week in against LSU.
I just honestly think, Matt, I think you might, in my opinion, I think you might be overthinking it. I think it was the fact that you had a speed D with Alex Grinch, had guys dropping. I mean, Corey Foreman, he could have been on the ads for for weight loss. They would bulk him up. He had to drop 30, 40 pounds. It was a roller coaster ride, and they were making guys smaller. We needed to get bigger, and they were getting smaller. And I don't know how much of that was Lincoln Riley or Benny Wiley. I do believe that was your defensive coordinator saying, "These are the body types I need to run for my system," and that's what he wanted. He wanted to make it fast and lean and whatever the hell he wanted to do. But then Lincoln Riley and D'Anton Lynn said, "We need to get bigger." And they said, "Hey, Wiley, get our guys bigger." And he did. This was none of it. It was Benny Wiley saying, "This is how big I want anybody." Benny Wiley's that guy. You say, "Just give me the instruction. Just tell me what you want, and I will give it to you." And Benny Wiley last year gave Grinch what he asked for. This year he's given D'Anton Lynn what he asked for, and he did a great job.
But I would just make the point.
Absolutely.
I would just make the point, Tim, that it's up to the head coach to determine the strength training regimen. And to the extent that Grinch had freedom or leverage to determine, how he wanted Benny Wiley to develop guys, that it was Lincoln Riley's choice to allow Grinch that level of freedom. Yeah. And so obviously one thing that's clearly different here this year, Lincoln Riley is hiring a village of guys, a community. He's not putting all of the responsibility in one guy. He's mapping out a full approach, a philosophy, and he's having several guys implement it. So like, it's not just that Lincoln Riley found a religion about, how bad Alex Grinch was. I think Lincoln Riley learned a lesson about not giving too much autonomy and control to one guy under him. No, you need a collaborative model with different smart football people all participating in decisions so that one guy can't hijack an operation the way Alex Grinch definitely hijacked USC last year.
I just think, Matt, you would agree with me that the Grinch runs a specific type of defense that wants a specific body type.
More finesse, no question.
More finesse, more speed, right? The speed D, right? So that's what I'm saying. He tells Riley, hey, for me to run my system, I need this kind of linebacker. I need this kind of 3 technique. I need this. This is what I need, And so to that point is he either fires him, right? Or he lists the type of body types he wants, and the marching orders go on. That's what we had for last year. And then I think obviously he was let go, and then it immediately changed. So for me, that tells me that it was absolutely Alex Grinch. It wasn't like I think way too much is tried to put on Lincoln. This is Lincoln Riley as a coach, and this is what he thinks of defense about. Most good coaches, especially an offensive genius, they're not really sitting back and trying to design the defense. That's why they hire a defensive coordinator for. The mistake probably was hanging on to Grinch as long as he did, for sure. But I don't think this was like Lincoln, I think we should get smaller, and I think we should do this. But I don't think that was all a bunch of Lincoln Riley. And he goes, no, you know what, Matt Entz, we got to get bigger. Okay, we're getting bigger now. No, I think that he realized he sees what's going on, and he goes, we need a better defense. He went and got Danton Lynn, who stymied USC's offense, and bam, now we got a bigger defense. Hey, Dr. C, great call. Sorry, we got some calls stacking up, and it's not your fault. We're the ones wrapping away, back and forth. Sorry, Matt. Really quickly, one last thing before you go.
Yeah. So just how does that conversation go? Because, Wiley was there before. I know you mentioned that Wiley did, pretty much mold the players as to what he was asked to do. Why does Lynn have that conversation? Hey, I want them to get bigger, stronger. Can I trust Wiley, or can I bring someone? Can I bring the guy who's the strength and conditioning coach from UCLA, or Martinelli from Florida was the strength and conditioning coach of the year from last year? Why can I bring that guy? How does that
Dr. C,
work?
Dr. C, why are we still? Why did you watch Sunday? Did you watch the game Sunday?
Watch Monday, the football game on Monday. You mean?
Did you watch
on Sunday? Yes.
Did you watch the game on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why on earth are we talking about the strength and conditioning coach right now? Whatever Benny Wiley's doing, let's keep doing it.
I hear you.
Okay.
I was just trying to figure out the logistics of how that happened.
I'm way past that now. I'm looking at, can we get to 10 wins and get to the playoffs? That's really my mindset right now. I guess maybe we could revisit at some point if it becomes an issue. But as of right now, this team just passed the test drive, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. Hey, do we have the depth defensively to last the Big Ten season?
Yes. We just showed that. I guess probably the most difficult offensive line we're going to see all year.
If injuries don't become a real big problem.
Yeah, and injuries are part of football, and everyone, if anyone's offensive line, unless you're like very few to stack deep, but it's not a position where you can plug people in, really. If you're losing 1 or 2 stars in your offensive line, even not how good the youth is behind you, you're generally going to be in a bad spot. So yeah, in order to go on a good run, USC is definitely going to need to stay healthy. Good point, Matt. All right, thank you, Dr. C. We'll catch you later. Great call.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you really quickly. Thank you to David Zapata, new member to the channel. Thank you so much for joining the channel, as well as 11 Nats Fight On. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate all the support. Really appreciate everyone being here, guys. Again, if you haven't already, do us a favor. If you're liking the show, go and hit that like button really quick. And if you'd like to see more, by all means, become a subscriber to the channel and make sure you put those notifications on. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Michael. I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm at my son's hockey practice, so if you hear any noise in the background, sorry about that.
That's okay. We're not worried about that.
Show. Thanks, brother. A couple questions. One, we got to give some love to Eric Henderson as well, right? I mean, I know DeAnton Lynn got the bulk, right, of the appreciation. But unbelievable. I think that the initial drive, the fourth down stop in the first quarter, and when LSU has the ball, they're driving, and you're thinking, all right, they're going to score because that's what they would have done last year, and the game's going to be over, right? And we stopped them, and we get that field goal, and then we come back and we scored a TD. That was just amazing. So there's definitely something different in the air. I know I hear rumors that Lynn's only going to be around for a couple of years, but man, oh man, that was an amazing performance. I went to SC. I graduated in '85, and I can tell you, man, it's been a long time since I've enjoyed a game like Sunday night. Obviously, I fully anticipated that we would find a way to give up that score at the end. I'm grateful that we didn't, and then when we came back and scored, that was just the icing on the cake. But definitely a new vibe at SC. I think you're going to see a ton of recruits start to reconsider, right, the SC opportunity. But as a Trojan fan, brother, amazing. Thank you for your show, man. I'll take your comments, your feedback on the back end. But yeah, Henderson, man. Henderson, Nua, all those guys, Ent, right? Belt, all those guys deserve much love because they all had a hand in what happened Sunday night. Thank you.
Thank you. Great call. We can't. It sounds like someone keeps putting one off the pipe there, dude. I can hear some ting on your practice.
Yeah, they're hitting the crossbar. Yeah, there's practice. So they're hitting the pipes.
Great call. Yeah, absolutely. We kind of get all there's a lot of flowers to go around on this victory. This didn't just happen because of Dantilin. That's absolutely true. It didn't just happen because of Lincoln Riley, Benny Wiley, Rachel Suba. We can go all the way down the line. We thought that the defensive line would be greatly improved. It absolutely was. Matt, what are your thoughts on defensive line play?
Oh, I mean, Adam Lamparello and others have mentioned that the 3rd and 1 stop, trailing 17-13 was the play of the game. I think that's a good comment. Like if USC doesn't stop LSU on that 3rd and 1, it might get completely away. So, that was really a big
that was all the unicorn
moment.
That was the unicorn.
Yeah.
That was Gentry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, woof, the dog work really came through for USC. And I just saw someone mention in the chat, do we have a chance with Jakeem Stewart? Like USC, LSU, right? He's in the mix for those two schools.
He was at was he, Matt?
Yeah, you got to think that this moves the needle in the right direction for him. So, with that and some other recruits, man, and let's just hit on that briefly, right? Catching up to Oregon and, NIL has its place. Like, it's not irrelevant, to be sure. Like, NIL matters. But the main thing, win games like this. Like, this is going to change the conversation with plenty of recruits. And it's so exciting to bank this one and just allow it to kind of simmer and marinate for a few weeks with other top recruits. Certainly bolsters USC's chances. I saw someone crystal balled Ryder Lions as well after this game. So stock watch going up in recruiting, and when you win games like this, that's one of the big benefits of it.
I think that one's been the worst for a long time for a lot of reasons. But it does a pretty good job when you beat your probably your biggest competition for that player. He's from Louisiana, so that win for Jakeem Stewart is probably a really big win. Really quickly, hold on a second. Let's get to a couple of these super chats. Sorry, I just stack it up. John Cardenas, how about that hype video? Which one? I mean, there's two really good ones. I think episode 2 came out about brotherhood.
He's referring to the Trojan horse one.
Which one's that?
Well, there was a Trojan horse video.
Oh, John, drop the chat. Let us know which one you're talking about, because I think Matt's gonna have to send me that link. And then Barry Fisher, thank you, Barry. I love that it wasn't a fluke win. The D is a real thing. Love it. O-line will prepare. Well, I'm hearing a lot of people say, well, that could have gone either way. It could have at the end. But again, if USC cleans up the things they need to clean up, and if LSU cleaned up the things they need to clean up, I'm still taking USC in this game. I think USC was the better team. I mean, they did show it all on both sides of the ball, especially Nussmeier. I'm talking about how great he is, but he was outplayed by Miller. Miller the killer, dude. He's just when it matters most, it just seems like he locks in. And I really, I'm really not going to doubt USC having the 2-minute drill with Miller Moss there, with the receivers that they have, with the running back that looks like he could catch the ball or carry the ball 10 yards into the end zone. It doesn't really matter what the defense does. I think this offense is so good unless you have some exceptional 2021 Georgia type defense. I'm not worried about any defenses. And I'm sorry, Moose and guys, if we have another super chat from Amazing. I was really, really worried about how we would hold up your defensive line. I'm not saying that I think you guys are going to obviously a better defensive line and probably a better defense clearly than LSU. But I do like what I saw from Miller Moss. I did like the decisions that he made. I do like the fact he can get the ball out quick, and I do think this offensive line is going to get better over the next 3 weeks. So still going to be a huge hurdle, but I mean, I'm feeling a lot better about that game than I sure was just a week ago. So, anything to add, Matt?
Nope.
Right. And then we have another one. Amazing Blue Guy. Thank you. Great win, Tim. Can't wait to see y'all in the big house. Should be a good one. I'll be there. If you see me, say hi. It's going to be great. As soon as I heard SC was playing Michigan, this is before Trojan's Wire, I think. I was going to this game. There was no way. My family's from Michigan. There's no way I was going to sit this one out. First game since 1953 or 57. I can't remember. I was getting mixed up. There was no way I was going to miss this game. So if you see me, say hi. It should be a great game. And then Lamont Hart, thank you so much. Ramsey gives Mark Carrier vibes. Baller. So he was all over the place. Matt. On that zone blitz I was talking about, they brought him off the edge, which obviously was a quick play. But yeah, they're using him just all over the field. So I can't. Just a great tackler and rangy. It's thank you, Bruins. We really appreciate that very much. The gift that keeps on giving. Did I miss anybody else here? We got Moose. So. We got Barry. Okay, so caller, I am so sorry for the long wait. Anything else for us?
Dude, I'm just looking forward to Michigan, right? Just looking forward to Michigan. And you're going to be there, so that should be another huge test. But Ramsey's a dog. These guys are, I'm telling you, man, they're building something special. I don't know if we've got a championship running us this year, but it's definitely headed in the right direction, man. And for an SC fan who's been jonesing for a competitive team, Jesus Christ. I mean, this is a wet dream. It's a wet dream right now. And that game was awesome. And hopefully we can keep that up all season long. All right. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it. USC continues to get better. I know everyone's looking at Georgia, just like as a world beater. USC continues to improve and stays healthy, Matt. I think that by the end of the year, they'll be able to give almost, kind of think about that 2016 team. It took them a little bit of time to gel, but towards the end of the season, there weren't many teams in the country that want to play 2016 USC. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Oh, I think I had it. Well, the good news is, the bad news is 3 people have dropped off because I was talking too long. The good news is that if you just called, I think I dropped your call. That was my mistake. If you want to call back, we have probably time for one more call.
During this little brief interlude here, while Tim pulls up the next caller, there is another thing to say. A lot of people in the chat saying, why did USC not get any sacks? Hey, Nussmeier was throwing the ball quickly and short. And that's part of the bend, don't break philosophy, right? You're going to give up 5-yard passes. You're going to give up 6-yard passes. The trade-off is you don't get beaten deep. If anyone tries to beat this defense deep over the top, that means the quarterback's holding the ball a lot longer. That's generally when you get more sacks. So, there were conscious trade-offs that Danton Lynn was making in this game. And he made the right trade-offs, right? give them the 5-yard passes, but we're not going to let you beat us over the top. We're not going to give up the home run. And then in the red zone, when space is tighter, that's when I'm going to blitz you. That's when I'm going to attack and get some pressure on you because everything's more condensed. Like, that is exactly the right thing to do. And let's keep in mind, beyond USC, we saw Oregon and Dylan Gabriel complete over 40 passes and yet scored just 24 points against Idaho. And what does that tell you? Oregon didn't have guys getting deep on Idaho's defensive backs. Like, so Idaho was able to keep Oregon in front, giving up tons of short passes. If you don't give up the deep ball, okay, you're not getting the sack, but you're not giving up touchdowns. That should be seen as kind of a lesson from week 1, not just in this USC game, but nationally and on a broader level. So what if you don't get sacks? If you're not giving up splash plays, that's really not that bad a trade-off.
Yeah. The whole game is not, whoever gets the most yards or who has the time of possession, that's not how you win a football game. You don't get extra points for that. It's who has the most points when the gun sounds, right? Caller, this is a special caller. It's my dad. Dad, how you doing after this great USC victory?
I'm doing fine, Tim. I was enjoying it particularly you were there to see it, as I was many years ago when you got to see your first Notre Dame game with me and back to South Bend. And it was the first year for the guy by Pete Carroll. I think he did pretty good at USC. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that first game we were on the field, he get me to interview with the local network in South Bend. It was just kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And they were asking my opinion. And I said, well, I'll tell you the truth. I see a change in attitude. That's where it all starts. You have to have a team that believes in themselves. And no matter what's happening in the game, carry on men of Troy to another victory. Carry on men of Troy with a count of 2 or 3. And they did. And they were fighting on. And that's what the people on the network said. They used our terms about our team. And I mean our team. And I think everybody knows they got a long way to go. But I told my other son, who played a lot of football, as far as I'm concerned, it's the first game. They're going to win. That's the first of 11. And let's believe in them. And you got to think positive. You can't think negative. And that's the way things turned out well. Pete was nice enough to send me a note, thanks to Tim also recently. And I just want to say, Kevin wants me to cut off because he wants to have the other people coming in. That's true. And you should get your listeners in. But, hey, guys, believe in this team. Now, one thing that kind of bothered me, I'll be honest with you. If you're a Trojan fan, I don't want to hear another Trojan fan the rest of this year ever saying anything negative about a certain quarterback we had there that won a Heisman Trophy. As great as the new quarterback is, and I think he's going to be greater, let's always be Trojans. Let's always be positive. Okay, guys?
Right, you got it, Dad. And I think you're on it. I remember that the whole first year with Pete Carroll. I remember even when we were losing, you kept saying to me, like, and I thought it was just the optimism you always give to me because you are a very optimistic person. But I remember you clearly saying to me, this team's different, Tim. This feels different to me. And that was early on. And what you were talking about is what we were seeing. The style of play, you guys, if you were around for that after the Paul Hackett years, Pete Carroll came in and the guys were flying around and they were having fun and they were nasty. They might have smiles and have a lot of fun, but those guys hit and they were ballers. Even the Sonny Birds, it's just pounding. And I tell you what, he may not got a lot of yards, but whoever had to tackle that dude, I guarantee was spending some extra time in an ice bath the next day. And the attitude my dad's talking about was a winning attitude that Pete Carroll brought to USC. He made them believe in themselves. And I'm just thinking, maybe this defensive staff that came in, and when I think about a Matt Entz, a guy who's been at the highest level and won national championships as a head coach, as an assistant, he knows what it takes to win. And I know that Coach Riley has been to the playoffs, but he's never been to that promised land. I just wonder if it's just on the back of my head that just this idea of a culture that's maybe a switch on this team, it just does seem a little bit different, Matt, that this year. And if my dad's onto it, and this is it's not going to be a 2001 losing season where we end up going to Las Vegas and losing at the end of the year. But this is going to be a better yet a season where I think they get better every single game. Matt, I said it. I said Lincoln Miller's going to get better every game. This defense, the install has been great. Short of miraculous, how he does this last year at UCLA. Dantlin comes over here and pretty much gets it all together here as well. And he did talk about getting the basics in, and throughout the season, they're going to install more and more. So I wonder what this defense could look like in November. Caller, thank you for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And thank you, Dad, for calling.
This is Davey from Mutes Country, Salt Lake City.
Davey, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
I'm calling. It's funny you brought up that 01 Vegas Bowl.
Oh boy,
that's the one where they lost to Utah, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I put Salt Lake City in that together really quickly. Yeah, yes, that's right.
Yeah, I'm calling. You think this team would have beaten Utah? Because I live in Salt Lake City. I'm from LA, but I moved out here for work, and so sick and tired of telling me that they own us.
Well, they won the games.
So
I mean,
yeah, but they didn't win the game that mattered, the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different story. There's a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so everyone out here, they just brush it off like, oh yeah, it's a fluke, and if we played you guys like this year, we would beat you guys, and so I'm hoping that we meet these guys in the playoffs. If there's any kind of way or chance that we see these guys in the playoffs, because I really think this team will smack. I mean, yeah, they'll smack Utah around.
Utah or Oklahoma, baby.
Yeah, and what's crazy is the pig farmer's playing this week.
Utah State, yeah.
He's a starting quarterback for Utah State, yeah. And
you might see a slightly different defense from last year.
Gabe, I can't remember if you told me. Gabe told me he called himself the Trojan Slayer. I really hope for that young man's safety he did not call himself the Trojan Slayer, because he may not make it to the third quarter if that's what he said. If that was him giving himself that name.
Him out here.
Well, listen.
Yeah, and a lot of Utes fans out here calling, dubbing him the Trojan. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Listen, I know Rising didn't. I'm pretty sure Rising didn't play last year. He didn't play last year. And they did have the pig farmer, but we had the pig DC. So I mean, that's kind of a wash, because we knew they were going to march down the field on that defense and score last year.
I was there. I was there at that game.
Yeah,
I was there at that game. That was my son's first game. I took my son to the game. We flew out here over there, and he was crying. He couldn't stop crying. We sat by the tunnel, all the way in the bottom, and yeah, he was hurting. And I told him, don't worry, it's a game. We flew back, and yeah, I was there at that game.
That defense had
like you said.
That defense had a way of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I mean, it just truly did, time and time again. It just seemed like that. But I mean, I keep saying it. We won 8 games last year with that defense. We won 8 games with that defense, and a lot of teams be happy with the 8 wins. Now with the improvements that have been made, this team literally doesn't resemble, because there's only 3 or 4 starters on that are from last year's team. This is really a new defense, new coaching staff. Like my dad just said, there's a new attitude, and a lot of that stuff goes a long, long way.
Yeah, I know. I was I have a cousin that played at USC. I've got tons of family, but is Philly Moala.
Oh yeah, lineman.
Yeah, he was lineman. Yeah, from Orange County. Yeah, so we used to go. I used to go with him to go watch the scrimmage games. Back in 05, 04, and yeah, Pete Carroll years. Yeah, but I'm stoked. I'm really happy. I'm glad that, you know what I mean. I'm so sick and tired of the media and, being out here in Utah. I've never gave a crap about Salt Lake, the Utes, until I moved out here. I was like, man, sucks. But yeah, man, I'm stoked, and I listen to your guys' show all the time. This is my first call.
Well, I tell you what, Davey, I hope you call back in for first call again. Usually, the first time callers always do a great job as you just did, and I do. I really hope you call in on Thursday and throughout the year, because I think I got a good feeling this could be a special year. So thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being here, and fight on, man. Sounds like you're ready for a lot of wins.
Yeah, fight
Thanks
on,
for
man.
calling.
Keep up
Thank
the good
you.
work you do, man.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you watching. Thank you. All right, Danny Kennedy, thank you so much. The Pete Carroll era was a great era. That is perfect way to put it. I remember telling people that people were complaining about Rose Bowls. People were complaining about 11-win seasons. I'm like, you guys got to stop, because this stuff, it doesn't last forever. And eventually this is going to stop. It's going to come to an end. Enjoy it while you have it. That's what I'm telling you guys this year. Enjoy whatever we get this year. Enjoy it, because the
1990s existed. Do you remember the 1990s? Do you remember the mid 1980s?
We don't remember the 50s.
And do you remember the non-Sam Darnold, Clay Helton years? My goodness! Like, if you think 11 wins in a Rose Bowl is a failure, I'm just going to strangle you. I believe in nonviolence, but I'm going to make an exception if you tell me that winning the Granddaddy and 11 games is a failure.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to people what it's like to be a Trojan fan, because we have this uncanny ability to hit the highest mountaintop with our program. I mean, literally, we're just like, it's USC, they're gonna win. Just like the 60s, the 70s, and the Carroll years. It was just basically decades where we just dominate. And then we decide that we're gonna fall on the Trojan sword. Usually the NCAA starts it, then we finish ourselves off. Seppuku style. I don't know what we're doing, and then USC sees the light again. And to really have appreciated the Carroll years, you had to have been a student at USC during the Paul Hackett years, and to watch what was going on. It was truly something that you go from this lowest point to this high point, where programs, like at Alabama, like at Ohio State, that win all the time, they just don't understand what it is like to lose for a little bit, because it makes that first bite of the apple just a little bit sweeter when you've been fasting for 24 hours. You know what I mean? So,
or 5 years, as it were.
I'm being metaphoric, but yes, I get it. So I mean, you really, guys, I let's not hype it, right? I don't want to be coach speak, but in reality, we've passed test number one. I think Matt's right. We just got to be dominant, and then this next game, get all of our stars out super early and relaxed. And then get ready and have another huge test on the road against Michigan. If somehow we come out and we're 3-0 after week 4, then that hype train is really going to kick into another gear, because regardless of what you think, I've been seeing the banter about the Michigan quarterbacks, which by the way, sorry, Michigan guys, I really do tend to agree. You guys better find a passing game, or else you might be in trouble against this defense. It's going to be a tough road trip. This isn't just traveling over to Vegas. This is going to the big house. There's going to be some kids with some wide eyes in front of 110. What do you guys got in that big? What was the big house hold? What's Michigan Stadium? 110, 116? What is that?
112, I think. Yeah.
112. So, I mean, I don't care who you are. I hear about the wine and cheese crowd. I think that's overplayed. You're in front of that many people. Even just the visual spectacle of it is going to be something special. And I'm sure the way USC's played Michigan over the years, they could deny it. But we've kind of had the better. If we've had the better of Michigan really in my lifetime, really. So there is some bad blood between. You think we were getting those sissies from the West Coast from Baton Rouge? We're gonna get that as well from Michigan. Maybe not as much after what they saw happen, but it's still gonna be coming our way. It's gonna be a great game. It's gonna be an absolute. Talk about some of your all-time helmet games. USC's helmet against Michigan's helmet. I mean, you really can't ask for much more than that when it comes to college football. But, Call, you there?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
What do you want to share about the game with us?
Tim?
Yes, hi. How you doing? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Phil. I'm calling from Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe. Wow. How are you doing? How's Lake Tahoe right now?
Yeah, I'm old. That's beautiful. I'm an old guy. Graduated '69 from university.
Right there, right under my dad.
I just, I've been looking at your show, and I may have missed it, but I haven't heard anybody talk about the amazing impact and turnaround of the special teams and the impact that had on this game. And I wanted to ask a question. When was the last time that an SC team had no blocks in the back on a kick return?
That's a really good point. Wow, really good point. No holding, no block in the back, no special teams snafu. We're starting inside our 10-yard line. Good point, Matt. You want to just so I can see it?
But we missed a chip shot field goal.
I mean,
Missed a chip shot field goal. That can't continue. Like, we just cannot have that. Like against Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame, these games that are shaping up to be like 20-17, 27-24, man, you need to not leave 3 points on the field the way we did.
It was disciplined, but I mean, also Xavier Thomas was probably a toenail away from if Christian Pierce doesn't make an absolute baller play to get a piece of Xavier Thomas, he's gone. I mean, there's a seam there. I don't know what kind of athlete Lance is. He better be a hell of a tackler, because it looked like there was Lance and a hell of a lot of green if he gets past Pierce. But Pierce came up nails and did that. But I'm not going to take away from what you just said. Absolutely clean, and I do like that. I'm kind of embarrassed. I didn't really notice that as much as I should have. I was just caught up in everything else. But you're right. I mean, Matt. I mean that has been the hallmark of USC special teams, is shooting themselves in the foot on a stupid penalty, either to knock ourselves back.
Time and time again.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
That is a good point.
So that whatever's going on with the coaching of the special teams is a huge improvement over last year. And, we know the championship quality teams have to have special teams. And again, that kick, you're right. I mean, you got a young kid in the big house or in the big setting, shoving one. But I was so pleased to see that the special teams were coming around into more of a disciplined championship quality mindset. So for what it's worth, decided to throw that in there. And love your show. First time caller myself. But I picked that up, and I just thought I'd throw that in there. So,
well, again,
keep up the good work.
I love all you callers. But I really have a soft spot for people that the first time call. I remember this is told. I'm gonna say it really fast. I remember Raul Mondesi had like a 3-for-4 game, and I was excited. And I finally got the nerve to call into a Dodger radio show when I was probably I don't know, years. I was young, and I was sweating bullets. My heart was racing. I'm gonna be on the radio. I was off like 2 seconds. Asked my question. They said, "Okay, thank you, caller," and then that was the end of it. But I really love when people call in for the first time, because the whole purpose of our call-in shows is we know Trojans know ball, and you make our job so much easier when we get to hang back and listen to you guys spread your opinions and share your expertise with us, because we got lots of generations of Trojans out there, young and old, and some of us in the middle, and it's just different perspectives that just really make this show. And I do appreciate you calling in. I just picture you there with an iced tea in Emerald Bay, just sitting there in Lake Tahoe. So I really appreciate the call, and I hope you call back in again.
Yes.
Oh, we will. You guys, by the way, this format nails it. I love the format. You guys do a great job, and putting it out there to the Trojans. You're right. A lot of avid football fans that know some football, and you guys tap right into it. Your repartee with the people is very cool. So keep up the good work. I'll let you go, and fight on.
Fight on, man. Thank you. Truly appreciate all your words. Means a lot to us. Thank you. And again, now I've heard you once. I hope you call in. Don't be like me and be afraid of my Mondesi call and don't call back in for like 4 or 5 years. All right. Thank
A lot of
you.
things I'm afraid of, but that's not one of them. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. All right, Matt. I see you getting antsy. I think we're almost out of here. Sorry, we tend to go long on our calls. The reason why I do that is because, again, I truly believe I want to. If you're going to call into our show, I want to honor you and you get to talk. So the 3 people that kind of pulled the plug, sorry we didn't get you tonight. Appreciate you all. We'll be going again live Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. We'll be getting ready for the Utah State game. I'm sure we'll still be basking in the glow of this win. There's always news on USC. I'm sure that there's going to be something to talk about. Let's not sleep on it. And you guys, listen. If you're in Southern California and you call yourself a Trojan, we need to get 78,000 people into that Coliseum. This is a team that just laid it out on the field. They've been blood, sweat, and tears, in the offseason, giving you guys that product in Las Vegas that you should be damn proud of. If you're within 100 miles of the Coliseum and you got like $40 in your pocket, you need to you can pick up a cheap ticket. I'm telling you, you can. Get out to the Coliseum and support your Trojans, because this team deserves it. This team I can't tell you. Like my dad said, it's just a bit different. And so if you want to be that guy that pretends like you saw the 74 game, go ahead. If you want to pretend like you were there at the 2005 Notre Dame game, go ahead. But you have an opportunity to be there this season and possibly watch history with this team and Lincoln Riley turning it around.
Let me add this to piggyback on Tim's point. Because if there's a capacity crowd at the Coliseum on Saturday against Utah State, that doesn't mean like USC is going to beat Michigan 2 weeks later. But if those young men see a packed house, is that going to fill them with even more confidence and belief? Is that going to add to their sense that, hey, they're doing things the right way, they're going about their business properly, that their effort is being rewarded? Yes. Like, you're going to feed these guys. You're going to build these guys. You're going to give these guys a lift if you pack that house. It's only Utah State, but this is a good team that just did something special. These guys are working their butts off for you, for the USC community. Obviously, they're doing it for themselves too, but they're doing this for the school as well. If we pack the house, that's going to fill these guys' tanks. And that is the best way to catapult them forward into the season and to catapult them into that Michigan game, which is the next game after Utah State. If you give them that full house, boy, that is just going to inspire them more. Do we want to inspire this team, especially after it's done something great? I would like to think that we do. So, yes, pack that house. Let's show them what Trojan fans are made of.
And the Trojans, thanks to our team and our coaches, dispelled a big myth on Sunday about the passion and toughness of our football team. You guess what, Trojan fans? You're still being called out as soft fans. And I'm taking the fifth, because I've been going to every home game since I was, I don't know, my dad could carry me into the Coliseum. And I'm going to say it. We do not support our team. Now, when the Rams and Raiders were in LA and USC and was the greatest team in the city, then yeah, we were packing 93,000. Those games against the 2008 game against Ohio State was just an absolute party, and it was loud. And those Ohio State Buckeyes were feeling it. In 2003, when you had Aaron, or 2004, you had Aaron. No, 2003, you had Aaron Rodgers at the Coliseum for the
2004.
2003 was at Sorry, Canyon. 2004 was at the Coliseum. That was the loudest I've ever heard the Coliseum. It was loud. I don't care Autzen or LSU, or Penn State. You want to talk about loud? That stadium was insane. And it can be that. And, this team deserves it. Get your butts out to the Coliseum and have fun, because, tailgating is great. There's not a better feel. And I heard some people batting around the best stadiums in the country. And when it comes to historic stadiums, I'm sorry, but you name me a more historic stadium than the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Probably going to notch another Olympics being held at.
Yep, 3 Olympics. That's right.
So, and we've had Dodger baseball there. I think it was a World Series. Have I been wrong, Matt?
1959 World Series was there. Yep.
Right. Yeah. The Rams, you have the Raiders. Wasn't the Super Bowl the Raiders win? Wasn't that also at the Coliseum? Is that correct with Marcus Allen?
No, Super Bowls 1 and 7 were at the Coliseum.
All right. We're pushing Tim's too little to remember some of the stuff, but all I'm saying is
Marcus Allen was Tampa, 1984.
So if you want to talk about a stadium that has a history, where you have Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, you have all these people coming, and I'm sorry, someone show me the numbers on some other stadium in this country. You might have Shea Stadium might talk about the Beatles or I don't know, but when you talk about the whole picture of what this Coliseum has been, nothing comes close. Nothing comes close, and I would love to have the argument with anybody out there. So, did we get everybody's super chats, Matt?
Think so.
I think it's about that time. Listen, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Mark wasn't here this week, but he will be back next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We're obviously here on Thursday for the call-in show at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 Eastern. If you do me one big favor, there's still 141 of you crazy guys that I appreciate out that are still here. If you have not hit the like button already, let's get that thing up to 141 at least. And if you guys haven't subscribed, what are you guys waiting for? We do this at least twice a week. Love all you guys being here. Truly appreciate all the kind words and all the people in the chat. Thank you so much for all the super chats from Moose, Barry Fisher, Gary Cepeda, and Levin Nats. Thank you for joining your memberships. John Cardenas, Lamont Hart, Danny Kennedy for being a member and donation. And then Debo Feng, sorry about this. I'm curious to see Texas versus Michigan first. That could help us gauge what Michigan is for us in week 3. Absolutely. They looked a bit mortal. This is a team that lost a lot in the coaching staff and on the field, but you have to remember things. Sharon Moore is still there. They're going to have a nasty defense, and you got to know, Matt, that offensive line is going to be tough. But I'll tell you what, they did not look like world beaters the other day. Anything for Debo on that game?
We'll talk a lot about Texas, Michigan next week, and how USC lines up against Michigan. So we'll just sit back and watch Texas, Michigan. I will say, it's in USC's best interest for Michigan to win that game. Not saying Michigan will, but it's definitely in USC's best interest for the Big Ten to get leverage over the SEC. Now, USC already did its part, right? Beating LSU. Now, if Michigan can beat Texas, that's another Big Ten over SEC win. And all of this is important because, if the Big Ten wants to get 4 teams into the playoff, well, USC could be that 4th team, but that's if Big Ten teams are beating SEC teams in these early season non-conference games. That's going to give the Big Ten more leverage over the SEC for those at-large bids in the expanded playoff.
And that looks like it's it for my editor over at Trojan Wire, Matt Zemek, and myself. Thank you guys all for being here so much. And by the way, it does matter. You know why? Because Vince Young's knee was down. Horns down. I will see you guys on Thursday.